So for this next project, we're going to complete 9 views of an object drawing, which basically means that we're going to take our largest square of paper, we're going to create 9 equally sized squares on that paper, and you're going to show 9 views of a single object. One of the cool things about this project is that as artists, you have the ability to show others exactly what you see or imagine, and that's what this project is really focusing on. You're going to show different views of this object that you discover to change our perception of a single object. So for this assignment, you can see that the artist on the right has taken a seashell and they've captured 9 different views, some above, some below, some zoomed in, some zoomed out. Your goal for this is to explore an object, find different compositions, find unique ways to display that, to demonstrate that, to uncover parts of it that may go unnoticed. One of the cool things about the example on the right is that this artist has used a variety of techniques that we have covered recently. So you will see at different points on this use of positive and negative space, so areas of solid black and empty white. You'll also see that they use various inking techniques from hatching to cross-hatching, cross contours. They even use some stippling down at the bottom. So while you're capturing these views, you also want to think about ways to make it interesting or visually pleasing by using these techniques. In the next part of this video, I'm going to show you what materials you need to make this happen. Then we're going to walk through setting up your paper, and I'm going to get started and show you how to begin this process using your pencil and finding different views of a single object. So as we prepare to start our 9 views drawing, you're going to need some various materials here. The first ones that you're definitely going to need are your 2 viewfinders. You have the smaller one with the smaller window to look through to capture different details, so that will help you with your framing. And then we have our larger viewfinder here, and not only is this going to help us view larger areas, but we're also going to be using it on our paper to set up our 9 squares. So we're going to create 9 squares that are exactly the same size as this cutout on the viewfinder. So make sure you find both your viewfinders. As usual, you are going to need an eraser and a pencil. We're going to draw everything out in pencil, get it exactly the way you want it before we commit it to marker. So make sure you have both of those. And you're also going to want your variety of markers and pens. For this, you do not need to use just black markers, but these are the ones that have the varieties of points and sizes to help you complete the project. The last 2 things you're going to need is your largest sheet of square paper. This thing is very large. It's almost as big as my whole arm. We need a paper this size to make sure we can have our 9 squares evenly divided on the paper. So make sure you grab your largest sheet of paper. It's so big it barely even fits on the screen here. This should be the largest paper that you have. And then what you are going to want beyond that is an object you're willing to draw the different details with using the viewfinders. So this is my skateboard helmet. I'm going to use this for the sake of the example. So find a personal object you want to investigate your 9 views on. So I wanted to show an in-progress version of this before we set up, just to give you an idea of what we're going to do. We're going to take our piece of paper and we're going to add 9 squares on here. And in between those 9 squares, we're going to leave 1-inch borders all around, just to create a really nice presentation. So each drawing is going to be contained within a small 3-inch by 3-inch box, which should be the same as this viewfinder. We're going to set that up using pencil on our paper. So our paper is a 16-inch by 16-inch paper. It's a square. We're going to have an inch border, 3-inch block, inch border, 3-inch block, inch border, 3-inch block, and an inch border. We used to set this up using a ruler, but since most of you probably do not have rulers at home, we're going to talk about how to use this template and a pencil to set those up. So I'm going to start on my plain piece of paper, and I want you to look at this upper left-hand corner. What we're going to do is we're going to line up the edges of this template with the edges of the paper. These are 1-inch borders. So if I go up and I'm going to carefully line up my edges, I can take my pencil and I'm holding this down. I'm spreading my index finger and my thumb wide so that it stays in one place. I'm just going to take that pencil. Again, please use pencil, because if we make any mistakes, and we're all human, and we sometimes do that, we can erase. So I traced that first square. Now, how am I going to get the next couple squares? Well, we know our whole top row is going to line up against this top edge of the paper, and we're going to use the last box that we drew to help us line up the next one. So I'm going to take my viewfinder here, I'm going to line it up as close with the edge of the paper, and I want you to notice that this edge of the viewfinder is on top of this edge of the box. So that will give us a nice parallel box. There's 1 inch between the edges and a gap all around. Now I'm only tracing the inside. That's because that's the only area that needs to stay on my final drawing. So we want to do our last box in this row. I'm going to keep that top lined up there. I'm going to line it up over the edge of my other box here, and I am going to trace. So always lining up with the top and that left side. I'm keeping it consistent. That left side sometimes is the edge of my paper, sometimes it's the edge of the box. Once we're done, we're going to make our next row, so I'm going to squeeze it down here. I'm going to line up with the left side of my paper again, and now I'm going to line up with the bottom of the box in the top row. So I'm going to find my place here, I'm going to set it in, I'm going to check all my angles, spread my fingers out. Now this process can be rushed, but it's best to go slow. Check it. If you need to, move your hand. Notice my pencil started to go under my box there. So sometimes I'll dance my hand around. Got my new box. I'm going to repeat the process again, lining up with the edge of the box and the top of that other box, or the bottom of the top box. So this edge here, this edge. Hopefully you're seeing the pattern here. We're always using an existing edge to line those boxes up. So I'm using my viewfinder. I'm going to line my final one up. Top of my viewfinder touching the bottom of that third box over. The left of my viewfinder touching this line over here. That's got 2 rows down. We're going to do our final row. I'm going to slide my paper up. Now this one's going to be a little bit easier. We got 2 edges of the paper. Again, I'm going to line up with the bottom edges. Now if you find out there's a little bit of a gap down here, that just means the paper's a little bit longer than we intended. That's okay. I'm going to line up with the left edge of my paper, the bottom edge of my paper, and I am going to outline that box. I'm going to repeat the process like I did up top, except now instead of using the top edge, I'm using the bottom edge. I'm lining that left edge up with that edge of my box. I'm checking the top, looks centered. Now for our final box, I'm lining up here against that edge of that box, that way everything's consistent. The bottom of my paper, and I'm going to go in and draw. So hopefully when you're done, what this does is this creates a nice, even, tic-tac-toe-like grid with 9 3-inch boxes with a 1-inch gap. So you are set up to start your pencil drawing, and we're going to go over getting this project started next. So next we're going to talk about putting 9 views in these boxes. And because your viewfinders are all squares, you are going to be able to use those to kind of imagine some of your different views. This is obviously going to work well for larger areas. This one's going to work for smaller areas. The goal is to hover this over a detail. So let's say I'm going to do my clasp here. I'm looking at that and I see the details. And what you want to do is draw exactly what you see the same way you see it. So I'm going to fill the bottom half of my square on the paper with this detail. I'm going to add my edges going up where the nylon thread goes through. I'm not thinking about anything on this yellow area or beyond. I'm just using the viewfinder to focus in on this. Because we have practiced our ink techniques and our ink value techniques, we are going to look at these for areas of positive and negative space. I'm going to look for areas of value. Maybe I want to use a hatch line or some stippling on this. So once you're ready, you're going to go over and you're going to recreate that exact view in your box. Now back to our shape building unit, we want to use kind of our basic lines and our basic shapes to get as much detail as possible with this. So really try to capture exactly what you see, not just what you imagine. So I'm over here, I'm looking at this, I'm trying to go back in, I'm asking myself, how long is that? Does that take up 1/3 of the paper? Does that take up more? Where are those negative spaces or those gaps between? So I'm looking in on here, I'm seeing a negative space here at the top in between the thread and the buckle. So I'm trying to capture exactly what I see. So take your time, and with pencil, we're going to really work this out. We're going to try to get those exact angles, noticing this dips down. And I'm going to suggest that you go around and plan all of your views and all of your details. You might even want to, if you're going to do hatching or stipple, plan that in your pencil just to see how it looks. Pencil can always be erased, permanent marker cannot. So I'm just trying to test these things out and get it as close as I can to those details. So going around, finding 9 different views, move your object around, find compositions that you think are interesting, get the details, and plan those out in pencil. So 9 different compositions on your paper. So as you finish planning your compositions, I kind of wanted to show you 3 different stages of development on this project. Starting out, we have our outline drawing. So you go from a blank square and you start planning your compositions using your 2 viewfinders to find those details. You're drawing exactly what you see in those holes in the viewfinder. You're recreating those. Once you're done with the pencil, that's when you can move on to just outlining. This is a good part just to think about what you need to make solid, what areas you're going to keep in your drawing. And then once you're done with outlining, I would suggest going in and erasing. So cleaning those up, checking your line weights. And then before you finish up, I really do want to challenge you to try using some of your ink techniques, whether that's hatching, stippling, cross-hatching, any technique that's going to work well for you to add textures and details. Remember, you can also use negative space. You can fill some of these areas in with solid black. You can change the borders on your boxes with different line weight to make them pop. But as you go through, finish up your pencil drawing, do your outlines, and then finalize with different value techniques, positive, negative space, line weight, and details to get your 9 drawings polished. The absolute last thing you should do before photographing, just go over it with an eraser. You won't need that pencil anymore, and clean up your final drawing before submitting on Canvas. Have fun and discover new aspects of your object.